CUD in Doom. Before we talk about what this project is doing, we should talk about what this project is and what it is not. Let's turn on a light here. What it is not is a mod that makes Doom look like CUD. This is a live game of Caves of CUD, open in the background, literally open in my taskbar right now, from which Doom is reading all of the information that you see represented in semi-3D in front of your eyes. Now, that's not to say that all of this comes directly from CUD. There are many things that CUD does not know that a visual representation is interested in. For example, CUD has no concept of roofs. And my roofs have no concept of shingles right now above doors, as you can see, still missing a texture. And CUD has no concept of the horizon, so I had to dream one up. Those are the real parasangs you see out there. We can open the world map with O here. Look at us down there in the southwest. And if you look to the southeast, you'll see the next parasang's a swamp, and then beyond that are desert canyons. When we look out to the southeast, we see swamps near and desert canyons far. Out in the distance, we see certain things that are visible from anywhere in the world. Impassable mountains and the spindle. So those are all drawing on the horizon at the correct angle that you would see them from Joppa. You can see if we move a little out here, they're basically from due east or a little north of due east to a little east of due north. If we check out the map, that's about the angle that they make here if we were to draw this up to the top and out to the end. That works from all locations in CUD. We'll see that shortly. You can see the spindle is obscured by the mountains. If we were closer to it, we could see it in its full glory. And we will. Over there, we can see there's a special tile that, because red rock is a landmark, it draws especially big on the horizon. But it follows the normal rules in general. It's 2 parasangs away so you can see it. There should actually be marshes drawing in front of it. That's an omission right now. Certain things are not implemented just yet. Much is being handled by CUD, and the connection between CUD and Doom is not perfect. Combat is in. We could pick fights if we chose to, especially with melee weapons. I think right now we have no ammo, and that's being checked, so we can't fire our guns. But if we were to move over here and start attacking Tam, what's this guy's name? Tam. We would be able to do damage to him, as mediated through Caves of CUD in the background. The combat rolls show up in the CUD combat log, but only Doom can call for them to happen. You can even see what weapons everybody's armed with floating there on their sprite. Right now they don't know how to use them though. If I were to aggro them, they'd all just start shooting me with Doom Imp fireballs. That's all anyone knows how to use. So there's a couple of locations that are super interesting to look at right now. Oh, let's check out these animating sprites over here as well. We can see, just like in CUD proper, we've got the water wheel and its various components animating here. And, for good measure, we've got the full CUD map here under Tab, replacing the Doom map, with CUD's rules for Fog of War. The idea is that the entire game should be playable not just from this interface, but from this interface. You should be able to just play it as a top-down, real-time shooter, Doom style. In fact, I had a project going that was CUD as a twin-stick shooter that worked even better than any of this, but this is more visually striking, so this is where we're committing our time for now. Let's move. We've seen enough of Joppa. Let's check out the stilt. There we go. Stilt music should come up here. If it doesn't, well, I'll have to kick that in the ass. But here looms the stilt. So obviously CUD has no concept of a tall building in it, so this was also an interpretive measure. But I do want to stress that nothing in this setup is ever hand-placed. So I did not come through here in an editor and build this out to look like a tall version of the 6-day stilt. This is still reading directly from CUD's data. What I've done is apply certain rules to certain kinds of walls and locations. So the game knows that marble walls, when they are part of a large run of a building, should be taller, or can be taller, have the option of being taller. It knows about corners, and it knows about crenellations, although this was actually something of an accident that I decided that I liked in the end. Felt like the front of the stilt was a little spare, and I tried putting decorations up on top, and that seemed a little bit too authored. So we just messed with the heights instead until it was where I was satisfied. Satisfied enough. Can always be improved, of course. Inside the stilt, we've got a pretty good effect going on. Let's turn on some lights. These default to being on in CUD proper, but the stilt is really bright when they're all turned on, so I wanted to have a little lighting ceremony. Oops, game closed. 1 second. There we go. Well, part of the process. So back inside, And it's still playing the Joppa music. What's up with that? It was working before, music per zone. That should also be read directly from the data, but in this case, clearly not being. Also, NPCs who are guards or who have names are not supposed to wander around like this, but it seems like at present they still do. This is an interesting technique here, so you may notice that this tile is usually taller. If we look at it in the tab menu, if we look at it in the map here, it seems like it occupies a full space. But we've adopted a technique called foreshortening that makes it so that these tiles actually squish down and appear to gain a little perspective. Oh, hello, Mr. Alligator. Not sure it worked super well on this particular tile, but it does work well on certain ones. Let's back out here and talk to Escahind. They've got some furniture that it works really well on. So originally these tiles here stood upright and just filled the whole tile just like they do on the map. And I decided that was no good at all, so we foreshortened them and stretched them out to give them the appearance of laying flat on the ground. Pretty pleased with how that turned out. Dialogue is not working yet. The game knows when you're close enough to someone to talk to, but I have not yet gotten it to actually pop up and show us any actual dialogue. Back in the back here, we also got the holographic gentleman going. What was his name? I don't remember. Not all... Oh, there we go. Shekinah, of course. We can see descriptions in the game, although those don't always work. This is going to be called a Brinestalk wall, which it clearly is not. But the statue of Dagon, statue of Bel, very nice. Here we have the mural. Got that together in the right order. Let's turn the lights on, get it a little bit better lit. It was a challenge to get this not to be floor to ceiling, but the game does now correctly distinguish, well, correctly. In this case, it distinguishes through data, not through a hand-authored thing, but I wouldn't be totally confident about the data being interpreted correctly in every context, about the idea of a centered feature, not necessarily being a floor-to-ceiling wall. Out here's the graveyard. You can see the dunes drawn on the ground. The tombstones are currently the victims of my random placement algorithm, so they're all a little shuffled. That could probably do with some kind of rule. When stuff is graves, it should be in straight lines, most likely. Right now you can't fly over fences, so flight doesn't serve much purpose. It doesn't really behave like CUD flight yet right now at all. In fact, mutations are essentially not in. Neither is darkness, neither are quests. World map travel sort of works, but definitely needs some kicking. And there's Esthers, of course. Followers would be a fun thing to implement. Temporal fugue would be a fun thing to implement. We can see that the mountains are in their appropriate place on the horizon here. Oh no, they've fallen off a little bit. So they're supposed to stretch. This keeps, unfortunately, because the game operates entirely on data, sometimes fixing things up in one parasang screws them up in another. So Joppa's now looking real sweet with its mountain coverage. But over here, we can't see all the mountains that we should. So over here in the east and northeast, they're sort of working. If we check out the map, looks like we should be able to see them in the east-northeast. But we should also be able to see these mountains all the way over here. Impassable mountains are always visible on the horizon, and right now they're just not being drawn. But there is still something good to look at in here, even if things aren't working perfectly. The other zone's been pretty robust, so why don't we go load up another random parasang a little closer to yon spindle. Here we are. So in some ways, this parasang's a little bit of a mess. From the ground, these tree-heavy zones don't look their best. Can't really see very far. It's going to be a real disaster for line of sight. We got some critters wandering around in this zone, though. Some goat folk. Got some albino apes. It's what we like to see. I think there's a building here, too. It'd be nice. Yes, there are some buildings over there. Let's go stand on them. And let's take a look at the horizon around here. So where we've moved, I guess that's important, too. Let's look at the world map. We are now here, inside the ring of mountains that contains the spindle. So if we head over here, so we can get a better look at the horizon without just flying all the time, hop on top of a building, like so. The Neftali don't move for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why. They love to stand still while everyone else wanders. So, there we have a nearer spindle. The closer you get, the closer it becomes, until it's quite something standing one tile just south of it. That's not quite ready to show off yet, I don't think, although we could anyway, if we chose. But what I'm really impressed with is actually not so much the spindle, I've gotten used to that wonder, but the pass in the southwest. The mountains surround us on all sides on the map, except for in the southwest. And true to form, the horizon draws them, a circle on all sides, open in a pass to the southwest. Earlier, there was a bug that caused the horizon to draw a little bit beyond the mountains that gave a true appearance of the mountains framing a vast landscape stretching off into the distance, all of Cud contained outside that range. Haven't been able to replicate that effect, and not sure that I will, because I value the horizon so much here. But it was a pretty neat effect, and I may have to try and tweak it back in. What else is there to see? Caves? Oh my goodness, while walking across the world map, I discovered a yawning pit. Well, we know what zone that is. This is an unexpected diversion. We do have God mode on right now. Why don't we see if we can head down into this hole? Here we are. So this is a random tile, not one that I've manicured at all. So we can see it's a little bit imperfect yet. So what's that in the distance? We're looking to the southeast. We're currently... where are we? There? So southeast of us are some city tiles in the distance, so I haven't worked on those at all yet. They're not quite sitting on the horizon the way I'd like for them to be. The mountains are looking okay, though. Should there be a gap in the mountains to the north of us from here? Let's see. Yeah, a little bit to the northwest there. It's not totally whole, so that's valid. I think that's drawing the mountains correctly there. And here's a giant hole, which obviously is not rendering correctly yet. What's it look like on our tab map? Oh yes, of course. You would just walk right down it in Cud proper. But we're going to need to use our descend action, which may or may not work. Let's see if it works. It's trying. Yeah, so here we are underground. I haven't done a lot of work underground yet, but as you can see, we're starting out promising. So I mentioned there's no darkness in the game yet. This is only Doom's darkness. I do plan, this is Caves of Cud, not Doom, to implement an optional version of Cud's darkness rules where you truly just can't see anything outside of your canonical Cud light radius. But for now, while we're in testing, we'll just stick with Doom's darkness rules. This is quite a strange place we find ourselves in. I think this may be a little buggy here. I've never wandered this far underground before. It looks like the next parasang over didn't load correctly and we're just on an infinite plane now, which is fun, but let's head back the way that there's actual features. So the most interesting things we've done underground so far is this roof and ground texturing, where things are not totally even. We can see that they're not steps, they're not truly steps. You never need to jump or fly to traverse anything, but they are a little bit uneven and jagged, both ground and floor. I was thinking about going even further with that, maybe making it so that there are true dips and rises here, never changing the layout as Cud presents it, but only introducing, just as with layered buildings and with the horizon, newly imagined 3D features to Cud that in no way contradict what the data presents to us. And that's it. That's Cud in Doom. That's nothing. That's nothing. That's easy. The hard part's going to be the last 10%, of course, making sure combat really works, making sure mutations look at all good. I'm not sure how I'm going to achieve that at all. I may need to recruit some actual spriters for that one. I'm just not sure that Cud presents us with enough data to pick up mutation animations wholesale like we do everything else. Be worth checking out, though. Could definitely try harder on it. Getting dialogue working has been a bit of a chore. I'm sure that we could do it if we gave it a little bit more time. The main quest is not in any sense, but you can wander around Cud. Oh, and load times are abominable. Still takes forever to load a parasang. Not sure what to do about that. May have to abandon Doom and build my own engine entirely. We shall see. One way or another, though. It's looking pretty fun right now. Maybe I should release it even as it stands, just so people can poke around Cud and see it for themselves. Thanks for watching.